Hi guys, what's up and welcome back to another video. Today I want to give you a quick trick that you can use to enhance your user experience of your Ionic mobile apps. I want to welcome all my new subscribers to the channel, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that button so you can receive the notifications of any new videos. So empty state is a massive problem in web development, both in mobile applications and in websites. You've probably seen it before where you load up an app or you load up a website and you're presented with a blank screen. 2 or 3 seconds later, the content all loads in and it's being shifted around the screen like crazy, and it's quite frustrating. Something like a loader or skeleton text, which is the topic of this video, informs the user that something is loading. What you're seeing on screen right now is a slide that I presented during the Ionic conference back in June of this year. And the IonSkeletonText component that I want to show you today, it really keeps the user intrigued and focused. It also prevents any layout shift in your user interface while your content is loading in. In the description, I will leave a link to the code related to the app that I'm going to show, and I'll also leave a link to the documentation that's related to the Ion Skeleton Text component. So let's jump into the code now and see how easy it is to do this. So here we are in the code, and on the right hand side here I've got a really simple app set up with the Ionic Framework that is basically displaying a list of some sort of blog posts. So this is very useful in a case like this where you're going to load in a list of content that has images and headers and things like that. However, the skeleton text component can be used for anything, but this is a really good example to show you how it works. So I've got two little buttons set up here in the toolbar just so I can refresh the data and show you the loader happening. So if I press this, you can see that the skeleton text appears on the screen in the same shape and format of the actual list of posts. Now, you might be familiar with this, or you might be familiar with this type of loader, the spinner. So this is another way to prevent that empty state and to reduce that layout shift. Although the content is still loading in after a while, which is still shifting your UI, however, it still gives that effect and informs the user that something is actually loading. But the better approach and the more cleaner looking approach is the skeleton text. So let's jump into the code. I've basically got a list of fake posts that's coming from this file here. And this is just an array of objects that holds a title, a blurb, and an image and a date as well. For the sake of this example, I am just mimicking a sort of API call that is taking a little bit too long. So on the use effect, on the mount of this component or this page, I am setting a timeout of 2 seconds before I set the local state variable in here. And I'm setting posts to fake posts. So without looking at the refresh at the moment, let's come down into the return. In the return, I have a custom posts component, and that takes in the posts local variable from this component. And if I go into the posts file then, so in here, what I'm doing is if the posts.length is greater than 0, then I know that we have some posts and we have some content, so we can actually display that information. So if that is greater than 0, we display a list with the item per post and then all of the content within that item. So we've got a label, a thumbnail with an image inside it, and then the title, blurb, and date. However, what happens if the length isn't greater than 0? This means that our posts local state variable that has been passed from our homepage is actually empty. So we've got an else here, and it's going to come into this other custom component called skeleton posts. So let's go into skeleton posts and see what happens. In here, I've just set up a post amount to equal 10, and I'm mapping over an array of 10 items, fake items. I set up my item within the list the same way that I have it set up for the actual content, the actual content within the posts component. However, now instead of displaying content within the h3 tag, for example, I utilize the IonSkeletonText component. I set it to animated to give it that nice little wave effect, and then I set the style of it. So based on the content that you can see right now on the right hand side, most of the titles are around 50%. A good width for headers or titles would be somewhere between 60 and 70. But for this example, all of my headers just seem to be sort of 50%. So I've set the title here to be 50%. I've then set the P tag to be 100% because, as you can see, the text is actually spanning across. And then for the date, I've set the width of this skeleton text to 30%. Because this is quite small. And if we come back up to the Ion thumbnail, so we've got an Ion thumbnail here, and inside that component, the child of that component, instead of it being an image or an Ion image or an avatar, we just set up the Ion skeleton text in here, set it to animated, and this will take the form of an Ion thumbnail component by default. So if I show you that, we'll refresh. You can see how the skeleton text come into play whenever the posts are empty. There's no posts to show, so the skeleton text shows in the exact same form, shape, and format of what our content is going to be. And this creates a really, really nice effect on your, not only your user interface, but it creates a really enhanced user experience because the user knows straight away that there are some bits of content loading on the screen, which will probably convince your users to wait for that. Whereas if it was a blank screen that showed up and then 2 or 3 seconds later your content appeared with no indication, then by that time your users have probably swiped away from your app or browsed on to somewhere else because users do not like to wait on things loading. However, with the Ion Skeleton Text component, we can inform our users that something is loading. So this is a great way to enhance your user experience as well as your user interface and inform your users a bit better that your content is actually loading. So guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, if it helped you out, please leave a little like on the video, leave a little comment, let me know what you thought of it. And if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you do so you get notified of all my future posts and videos in the future. And I will see you in the next one.